Competitive 40k is destroying Warhammer, but in this video, we're gonna make it amazing. Sadly, this is what the battlefields of Warhammer look like at tournaments. We buy expensive, beautifully detailed miniatures into which we invest hours of time painting, only for them to fight over terrain that looks like a video game from the 90s. But it's not the player's fault, it's not even the event organizer's fault, it's our fault as a community. Because the truth is, competitive wargaming is community driven, and if we want our beautifully painted miniatures to fight over equally beautiful terrain, it's on all of us to help make that happen. So I'm going to show you how we can upgrade these MDF immersion killers for cheap. Last time we explored laser cutting and how we could take the ugliest terrain in the game and make it awesome with just foam bricks, paint and a whole lot of patience. But this time we're going full Xenos, upgrading these boring MDF ruins with some good old orc scrap. I really don't like how perfectly straight these edges are. There's literally nothing natural or immersive about this shape. But I do have this cheap hacksaw and a somewhat obsessive personality, so let's get cutting. Okay, so by hacking away at the MDF, I've broken up the silhouette. The other thing that I find really off-putting about them is how skinny, how thin the walls are. This is supposed to be a battle in the 41st millennium. Really? The wall's gonna be that thin? So it was time to bulk up these pathetically thin walls by hacking apart some cardboard boxes. I found an old mosquito screen at the recycling centre and cut out shapes to cover the windows. These provide a great texture and the impression of wire mesh. Using a hot glue gun, I fixed the mesh and cardboard to the MDF base. A consequence of this hobby is an empty wallet and piles of sprues. But what can we do with all this wasted plastic? Well, I'll tell you what. We can clip out the straight pieces and give them a bit of a spruce up, trimming off the little tabs and joining bits. Shaving away at the edges with a sharp hobby knife can create a nice worn look that can work as rough metal beams, perfect for some spiky orc scrap. This actually took quite a long time to do and left me with some blisters and aching joints, but hey, at least there's a little less in the landfill. I glued these onto the MDF base across the gaps in the walls and as spikes sticking out from the top and sides. Okay, so it's starting to come together, and what I'm really trying to do at the moment is pack out the walls, give them a bit more substance, but also kind of add those different textures. This sort of stuff here, this kind of cardboard, it's got the corrugated, it's called corrugated cardboard. It's perfect for creating the look of corrugated iron. The trick is to just carefully peel away the smooth kind of outer layer and reveal the lovely corrugated texture underneath. So this is a fantastic material in that it's literally free. You just pick it out of a recycling center. Adding that in interspersed with the flat bits of cardboard is really going to help sell the idea of lots of scrap metal pieced together and make it look awesome. I used more of my sprue beams to join the two parts of one of the floors I had cut apart, making sure that it would still slot into place properly when assembling. Okay, so seeing them side by side really shows how glaringly boring and awful that is. Kind of shows how much of an improvement adding some textures like this does. And I could probably get away with giving it a spray paint, do some dry brushing, and it would look okay. But I'm obviously not going to do that because the devil's in the detail, baby, and just like orcs, I will use any and all materials I can get my hands on. In this case, some cereal box cardboard. By cutting lots of irregular shapes and scrunching them up to add creases, they can look like scraps of sheet metal when painted. But it's still not enough. More! The wonderful thing about trash is it doesn't cost anything. And there are some really interesting textures. Corrugated, the little cross pattern, this interesting kind of dimpled look.
So again, I was back to cutting. Lots and lots of cutting. I mean, like, actually, a seriously stupendous amount of cutting. Until I discovered this really neat trick. This thicker packaging plastic was worthy of a bit more effort, not only to cut, but also to shave away chips along the edges to make it look a bit more battle damaged. Meanwhile, the repetitive physical process made me a little philosophical about why I'm bothering with this rather than just 3D printing something similar.
I just love the process of creating something from scratch. I know for a fact that no one else anywhere will have a piece that looks exactly like this. It is, by definition, unique. Whereas with 3D printing, you know, it's a file. Hundreds, thousands of people could download that file and print it. And so you lose a little bit of that magic. I love the fact that you can take something like trash that would probably be destined for the landfill and repurpose it and to make, like a little form of art. Anyway, I am interested to know your thoughts, so please let me know in the comments. You think this is a giant waste of time? Or are you like me and you feel like, you know what? Actually, there's value in the craft. There's value in the hobby process. It's not always about the destination, it's the journey and how you get there.
Anyway, eventually I reached a stage where I felt like I had enough material to cover the structure. And so it was really just a case of hot gluing all the various bits in place like some kind of mad, trashy jigsaw puzzle. It took a significant amount of time, which was definitely helped by being able to talk hobby with my wonderful patrons. I'm truly thankful to all of you. I really don't think I'd be able to keep doing these crazy projects without your support. For more detail, I glued in place different wires to look like some kind of electrical inner workings in the structure. Maybe to power some kind of futuristic device capable of keeping a silly L-shaped structure from toppling over. So far, this terrain is reminiscent of my kids' preschool art projects. Anyway, I reckon some epic music will help build this thing faster.
Now, most people will tell you that when it comes to 3D printing, filament is the way to go for terrain. But I disagree. I prefer to do the bulk of the crafting myself and then add resin printed details to elevate it to the next level.
And so these kitbash bits from Warzone Miniature will be perfect for this build.
And AnyCubic were kind enough to send me their Photon Mono M7 Pro. So let's see what it can do. This is a really easy machine to use, literally just plug and play. It's perfect for 3D printing noobs. And I've got to say, the fact that it has an auto refill is just so convenient. The amount of times I've been caught out with a ruined print simply because I've run out of resin. My favourite feature though is the self-heating vat. Here in New Zealand, it can get really cold in the winter, which is not good for resin printing, and the M7 Pro eliminates that problem.
I've printed quite a range of lots of different stuff with it now, and the ultra fine details and smooth finish with the 0.1mm layer thickness is just so impressive.
With its 130mm an hour printing speed, it's also really fast. A print like this doesn't take very long at all, just a couple of hours. Through September and October, AnyCubic are having lots of sales for their 10th anniversary, so if you're interested in exploring 3D printing, then it's a really good time to take the plunge. Right, now it's time to add those details.
There's no doubt resin printing is fantastic for this, but you can achieve similar results by cloning details from miniature kits using blue stuff molds and milliput. I had these ones left over from when I made the Ork Badlands side of my double-sided board, so I may as well add them too. The annoying thing about using a hot glue gun is the stringy bits of glue you end up with. But it does give a good excuse to enjoy the thrill of running an open flame across the highly combustible material that is this project.
And so far, it looks like, well, it looks exactly what it is, just an assortment of trash. We've got one more textural element to add. See, I had this wonderful idea that I'm now deeply, deeply regretting. And that is, well, I've got these little stud things, nail studs for nail art, you know, like to make you pretty. And I thought they would look great as rivets. The downside, of course, is this is going to be really, really fiddly and time consuming. But that's fine, that's fine. Remember the process. It's all about the journey, the laborious act of very carefully and fiddly gluing tiny little half spheres onto this board, painstakingly, one at a time. So tired.
After a 7-hour rivet gluing marathon, I could finally start painting. This is the stage I've been most looking forward to because it will really start to draw all those various materials into a cohesive whole.
Okay, so far all we've done really is prime black, a bit of a zenithal spray of brown, and I've started sponging a bit of this kind of orange color at the bottom to blend in with the color that I'm going to use for the base. And already it looks pretty good. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to use the sponge just to kind of dab a few other like browns and oranges.
Applying layers of paint with a sponge rather than a standard brush is such a great technique for creating the impression of rough, worn and rusty metal like this. And it's just so simple. This really is where the magic happens and you see what used to be rubbish starts to come to life, transporting you to the grim dark of the far future and the fun Mad Max-like aesthetic of orc scrap terrain. I used Vallejo aluminium to add a little metallic sheen. This was applied with a combination of dry brushing and dabbing with a sponge for more concentrated scuffs. I painted the metal plates of the orc face with an off-white colour to set it apart from the rest, and added pops of colour on some of the little details like the pipes and wires and various consoles. These little spots of colour help to add contrast to what is otherwise just a big rusty mess. But the white plates of the orc face were looking way too clean, so it was back to the sponge to add chips and scuffs with black, brown and then silver paint. But it still needed more weathering, so I thinned some burnt sienna with water and applied streaks with my brush.
Well, I think this is looking awesome so far, and it's just so satisfying when a concept comes together and such a wide range of materials actually end up working. And what's also great is that just like the foam brick version that I did in the last video, this one is also collapsible. So I can pull the platforms apart and then pull the two walls apart as well. So now all that's left is to complete the base.
So I shaved away at the polystyrene with a sharp blade to create tapered edges and cut into the flat surface to give it a more natural undulating shape. Using more of the milliput and resin printed details, I glued them in place as scrap to fit the theme. The rest of the surface was textured by covering it in gravel, coarse sand and grout, which was made strong and secure with matte sealant. Now all that's left is to paint the base. Now as I'm painting, it does occur to me that this took a significant amount of time for one L-shape, which is impractical for tournament organisers needing to fill lots of tables. But why not encourage the creative side of this hobby by adding a competition like Best Table of Terrain? Incentivise it with some prestige, like a trophy or some kind of prize. That way, over time, the community would accumulate a range of terrain that actually enhances the game rather than make it look so sad.
I mean, in saying all this, I honestly think L-shaped ruins are just a bit dumb and boring. But as far as they go, this one's not bad. I'd still much prefer to build something like a great big Gorkamorka fortress in a similar style, but let me know what you think in the comments. If you'd like to support what I'm doing here, then please consider joining my Patreon, linked in the description, and use my affiliate links for your hobby supplies. And now it's time for the final reveal.
A rusty amalgamation of scraps salvaged from the battlefield, cobbled together with hundreds and hundreds of rivets. Seriously though, there were a lot of rivets. Anyway, it's perfect for a pack of orc boys to hide behind and not get shot to pieces on turn 1. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time here at 3D Games. Until then, good hobbying everyone.